So Anne finally got her puffed sleeves. Um, and Matthew realized a little bit about fashion. He realized that Anne didn't match the other girls, and um, matching can feel important. It not necessarily is important, but it can feel important. And it felt important to Anne, which made it important to her and made it important to Matthew. Um, Not matching is okay. Matching is okay. Anyway, so Anne got her puff sleeves and she loved them. And now fashion can get really, really silly. So, Marilla commented that if the sleeves got any bigger, people would have to walk through the doors sideways. Now, one of the things that was a fashion back in the day, fashion has always gone to extremes to hurt people. Because it just gets more and more extravagant until, finally it's just too much and people just give up on it. But one of the things that used to be a thing were hoop skirts, where they took wicker, a flexible wood like substance. It's long, thin strips. They took wicker and they made these forms. And these forms went out from the woman's body, and the dress rested on the forms. So what happened was you had these dresses that were puffed out, and they were puffed out more than could be puffed out with fabric and still be wearable, because there's only so much weight you can carry. So they were large, airy things that were puffed out and puffed out and puffed out more and more and more. So women had these outrageously wide hips, or it looked like they had these outrageously wide hips, because the dress was puffed out 6 feet on a side. It's just these absolute silly things. And yes, the women would have to go into the ballroom sideways, or they would crush the things down. And it was just totally, totally preposterous, totally impractical. And that's what a lot of fashion is. A lot of fashion is, okay, how impractical can we make this? Because fashion is often used as a sign of money. So if you can afford to have something that is impractical, that is a sign that you have money. Like long fingernails. So you have the long fingernails, which get in the way and prevent you from doing all sorts of things. I'm not talking like fingernails like this, I'm talking fingernails like this. And so they are in some communities a sign of, look, I have wealth, I have power, I don't have to work because I can't work, but I can demonstrate that I can't work. And it's like, okay, I have to go like this to run my phone with the fingernails out because they're all so long and fingernails don't work on touchscreens. So, you have all of these people who are like these massive claws, and it's just like a silliness of showing off, but it's showing off because it's impractical. So it's one of those things that's demonstrated. China before modern times, up until the communist revolution in China, foot binding was a thing. And so you have these women who have their feet bound as toddlers. So they have baby feet. Literally, their feet are the size of babies' feet. And these women would walk around, and they wouldn't be able to walk around because humans aren't built to have little baby feet and be 5 foot tall. And this was just one of those impractical things. The Mayans, babies, they had the royal babies, had these boards pressed up against their foreheads to give this big, flat forehead because, that was a style. It was completely impractical, and it may have caused brain damage, but, these are the rulers of the people. And so. Neck stretching. Yes. Lolly pointed out neck stretching. This was something that's popular in some African tribes, where women would wear these gold necklaces, or this strip of gold around their neck. And the more they could afford, the more they wore. And so eventually you had these 5 inches of gold bands, and it actually presses down on the collarbones and deforms them, which gives this image of a long, elegant, beautiful neck. Um, but the problem is that it deforms and stretches and is uncomfortable. And actually, any pressure around the neck can lead to a stroke. So ties are actually kind of a sign of that, because neckties can cause a stroke, though they only recently realized that maybe 15, 20 years ago. But, ties are this sign of ostentatious wealth, because a while ago, men's fashion at one point was just as baroque as women's fashion. I mean, Louis the 16th, I think it was, came up with the high heels because he liked the way it made his calves look. And so men had all of the frilly stuff and the short pants and the gold medals and the epaulettes and all of this other stuff. And then there was a guy by the name of Beau Brummell who was like, no, fashion for men is going to be as plain as possible. But it has to be perfectly plain. So it was black, and it was blacker than black. It was the blackest black you can imagine, because that showed up every little bit of dirt and every little bit of dust, and you couldn't have even the slightest bit. And the shoes had to be perfectly polished, and the whitest of the whites and the blackest of the blacks, and no color, and just everything had to be just so. And so all of a sudden the gaudiness in men's fashion went away. Black tie. Yeah. Yeah. Black tie. I mean, waistcoat. Waistcoats. Yeah. Okay. So Lolly is explaining these things that are like, okay, yes, there are different levels of men's fashion. So you have casual. No, I'm saying casual, which is a suit and a tie. And this is the classic casual, because now casual means like a t-shirt. But it used to be that casual was for a man a suit and a tie. And then there was semi-formal, which was black tie. So that would be like a tuxedo. And so it's a white shirt, a black tie, usually a bow tie, black suit, often with a vest. The vest sometimes had a little bit of color. Often it was like gray. Then you had white tie, which was more, it was cut differently. There were tails on the jacket so that it was longer, but it was, once again, it was all a very contained style, and it was very, I want to say elegant, but it was simplistic. It was clean. That's the word. That's the word to describe the lines. They were just clean. There wasn't the accessories. There wasn't any of that stuff. But I'm not really a fashion person. I like to be comfortable. I like a nice soft cotton t-shirt and cargo shorts, and I am unapologetic about that. That is who I am. I am a soft cotton t-shirt, maybe tie-dye, maybe 1 or 2 colors of tie-dye, but I have like the soft cotton shirt, the cargo shorts, and I like it practical. And, I like the shorts I'm wearing right now. I'm not going to show you two because that's just weird. But the shorts I'm wearing now, jean shorts, nice and comfortable, has a little strap to hang a hammer on. So if I'm going and doing work, I can hang a hammer there. Occasionally I hang a hammer. But I have a problem with them. The pockets are too small. It's like, why? No. And so, yeah. Big cargo shorts, big pockets, soft t-shirt, soft clothes. I just want to be comfortable, and carry stuff. And, that's my guideline. I want to be comfortable and I want to carry stuff. And, I don't wear a fanny pack because fanny packs are uncomfortable. Though they do carry stuff. But, no. That's who I am. But Anne is a frilly sleeve type person. And she likes the big puffy sleeves. And Lolly was laughing when I was describing it. Actually, Lolly kind of laughed at that. But what she really laughed at was Matthew going into the store. And he was buying something he had no experience buying. And he was dealing with a woman. And he doesn't have much experience in dealing with women because he's I'm a guy going to the store. I want seed and I want a rake and and that's Matthew. And he wasn't prepared to say, I want fabric. I want a dress for a girl who's like, he doesn't know. And so I went to Mrs. Lind, and your Lolly laughed and laughed and laughed at that because, he said, he couldn't say dress, rake. He tried again. He tried saying dress, and it came, he tried saying dress, it came out hayseed. And it's like, you don't ask for hayseed in the middle of winter. You don't sow hay in winter. Sow it in the early spring. So that grows up through the year. And, this is about the time you'd be buying hayseed. And then he said sugar. And the person's like, white or brown? And Matthew was like, why do I have to say sugar? Why do I have to say something that gave me more options? And it's like, brown. How much? He's like, I don't know, 20 pounds. And 20 pounds is a stupid amount of sugar. I mean, if you're baking a lot of cakes and such, maybe, but 20 pounds of sugar? It takes me 3 or 4 years to go through 20 pounds of sugar. But that's okay because, sugar is one of those things that keeps. I mean, sugar just won't go bad. The only problem with sugar is ants get into it. Brown sugar can dry out, but then you just kind of moisten it and it's okay. But, sugar doesn't go bad. They have 200-year-old blocks of sugar in a museum, and if you were to go up to it and go, it tastes just as good now as it did then. It's still sugar. It's still sucrose. It's not going to break down. It's not going to change. So he said, sugar. And Marilla's like, why did you get all this sugar? And so from that moment, she knew something was up. He managed to hide the rake. He didn't get the hayseed, but, here he is with 20 pounds of sugar. And I mean, if I were gifted 20 pounds of sugar, I would probably end up fermenting it. And it's like, okay, here I have my beer. But, and 20 pounds of sugar, makes a lot of beer. That makes a lot of alcohol. I had a dandelion wine recipe once that called for 4 cups of sugar in a gallon of water. I was like, that's never going to ferment out. And it didn't. It was so sweet. So sweet. But, so 4 cups of sugar is, it's like 5 pounds, 4.5, 5 pounds. So that's this huge amount. I guess I could have made I guess with 20 pounds of sugar, you could have made a 5-gallon bucket of fermented stuff, of wine or beer or whatever you want to call it. So, I guess that would be a 5-gallon bucket's worth, which is a large amount. If you were to get into moonshining, it's, anyway. So Matthew had this stupid amount of sugar. He was just like embarrassed. I feel sorry for the guy. Even though he's fictional, even though he's long dead, because, this book is over 100 years old, so any character in it's long dead. And its grandchildren are probably dead by now, if they were real. But Anne doesn't have a boyfriend. But it's interesting. Gilbert is Gilbert picked up the flower out of her hair and put it in his breast pocket. And that's one of the things. That's one of the things to do often when men and women or boys and girls go to a formal event. The woman has a corsage either on her wrist or on her chest, and it's it's a small little thing of flowers. And the men often have in their buttonhole or in their pocket a flower that matches. So if the girl has yellow roses, the boy has a single yellow rose. If the man has, or if the woman has carnations, has red carnations, then the man has a red carnation. So it's like they match, and this is how you know that they align together. Often you get suits and dresses that match, but as I said, the men's fashion is just like plain and dark, like the dresses Marilla was putting Anne in. The men's fashion is just plain and dark with only very little flashes of color, but they have the ties and they have like pocket squares sometimes, and pocket squares is like a folded up handkerchief, and it's just this little splash of color in the pocket. So oftentimes you have the woman when you're old and going to prom, just like 16, 18, going to prom, and the guy says, "What color is your dress?" And so you say, "My dress is teal." And so he goes out and he gets a teal tie. So he wears the teal tie and you wear the teal dress. And it matches. And so it's like, oh, look at how pretty they are together. And yeah, congratulations. This 10-minute video has everything I've ever known about fashion. Not quite. I'm amused at there's a movie called The Devil Wears Prada, and this is from our wedding, isn't it? No,
Peter, no.
Where was this from?
Your dad's wedding, maybe?
Maybe my dad's wedding.
Peter had a thistle.
Yes, Peter had a thistle because we were in kilts and all Scottish.
Probably your dad's wedding.
Yeah, this was probably my dad's wedding. But anyway, where was I? Yeah, there's a movie that I will admit to enjoying called The Devil Wears Prada. And it's about a woman who's not fashion at all, and she gets a job working at a fashion magazine. And the coolest thing about the movie is this one speech that the antagonist gives. So normally you have the hero and the villain. In this case, the villain isn't really a villain. So you have the protagonist, which is the main character. And then you have the antagonist, which is the person who fights with the main character. But in this case, she's more of a mentor. The antagonist, the villain, is more of a mentor. And at one point, the protagonist wears this blue sweater. And her boss, this fashion maven, this person who knows everything about fashion, gives this speech, and it goes on for 5 minutes about the blue. And she starts out with, "Yes, you like that bid. You got it in a bargain basement. Blah, 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 blah. But did you realize that that particular color was..." And then she gives the entire history of the color, and then how it found its way from high fashion down to retail, and then ended up in the bin where you picked it up and bought it because you thought it was pretty. And it's just this entire intense takedown with knowledge that is deep and intricate. And it's like, yeah, this is why I will never know anything about fashion, but someone who knows that of that detail you have to respect. You have to respect someone who has that much knowledge of a field, someone who is that dedicated to their craft. You have to respect the effort.